good morning, everybody. Or I guess it'll be good afternoon by the time this is posted.
Good day, my friends.
Good day to you, sir.
Yeah.
Indubitably.
So welcome back to the Depression Vacation Podcast. And we have an awesome special guest with us today. Wow, I'm losing my voice. I'm really 20 seconds in.
And then we fired Hal. No, I'm just kidding.
You can't fire me. I'm already fired.
He fired himself.
That's right.
Is that quitting if you fire yourself, or is that a whole different thing? Though,
I mean, it depends on how aggressively you do it.
Well, it's for the reason that you're quitting. I feel like if you're firing yourself, you just feel like you're so inadequate that you're just like, no one else is going to fire me, so I might as well.
Yeah, like I think it's just like the aggression that you do it with. Like, if you go,
quitting is like, hey, that's your fault. Firing yourself is, it's totally me.
It's totally me.
So
like you're taking control of the situation.
Before we get more into this conversation, I really feel like our guest should introduce herself so people know who's talking, although they'll probably have seen the title card and seen that we have bum-ba-da-bum-bum-bum.
Sugey Cruz.
Woo!
Sugey
is one of my absolute favorite film friends who I haven't really seen in person in like a year because she's been so busy with so many awesome things. Like, it's kind of like whenever I see you online, I feel like I'm vicariously living through your like film stuff for a bit because like you're traveling all over the place doing like COVID compliance for productions during the pandemic. You're producing your own movies around here, you know, and I'm like, oh, you're doing Christmas specials.
I did do a Christmas, but actually, I think that's the last time I did see you.
Yeah, that would have been like right before Christmas of last year down at the John Harris Mansion. In fact, I occasionally see Steve all the time too. Yeah. You know, the facilities manager at the John Harris Mansion.
I love Steve.
Yeah.
Steve is like literally, you and Steve are most valuable player for Transient when we were filming in terms of making sure that we had our sanity, that locations were covered.
Steve is like one of 4 people I still know who work on the WITF side. And I only see him like once in a blue moon. Like it'll be like a weekend I'm working and I'll see him and be like, hey, Steve, how's it going? And we'll talk Star Trek stuff for like 10 minutes. And I'll be like, I really wish I could have this conversation go on longer, but I have to go back to work. But yeah, so Sugey is here to talk about all things her films and like experiences and just shoot the shit with Hal and Shannon. Because we're the other 2 people on this podcast in case we needed an introduction.
I'm on this podcast?
You are.
Oh, shit.
I'm really loving this like ducky sweater or shirt that you have going on.
Yes, thank you. I've had this for about 10 years now.
Okay.
I was going to say I've seen it a couple of times.
The rubber ducky shirt. Yeah. It's a big hit among the people, I think.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, people aren't expecting it.
In case you need to know what Hal is wearing, he is wearing a crossover Adventures in Babysitting and a Stranger Things shirt right now.
Go
I didn't
Steve.
even realize that it was the Stranger Things.
I was telling Sugey
crossover.
when she was saying that, she's like, oh, I love Adventures in Babysitting. And I'm like, it's a mashup shirt, but nobody ever seems to get the mashup because everybody is so excited by Adventures in Babysitting, which, oh man, like I love Stranger Things, but Adventures in Babysitting is probably the bigger...
I feel like we both got up this morning and chose weird.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, I have... Okay, so
what is Sugey wearing?
All 3 of us.
Oh,
Oh, my God.
Look at that.
I have a Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children shirt.
I read that this year.
What an eclectic choice of a shirt. I love it.
Yeah, and it's also kind of... so it's an upcycled shirt. So I had actually gotten this from a friend who does that kind of stuff and like... you know, tears it up in particular ways.
That's
and all that
awesome.
stuff. So I saw it and I was like, oh, I love that book and movie. So I just have to have it. So.
Sugey is the best dressed person here in a close tie with Shannon.
She's like, rude.
But Hal is just a slob who puts on
like,
whatever will fit
I
him on any given
I put time and effort into my outfit this morning. Thank you very much.
She's like, I didn't take a vote on this. How did we decide this?
Tie for best dressed.
All right.
It was supposed to be a self-deprecating joke towards me, but everybody was so offended they didn't hear what I was saying.
No, I'm just competitive. That's the problem.
She's competitive.
Do you want to compete with worse dressed then?
No.
Damn, reverse psychology does not work on Shannon.
That is not how her ADHD brain works.
In fact, it's a funny thing. Actually, my boss posted this a couple of days ago about fantasy football because football season is coming up, and it was sort of like because she's big into D&D, and she was like, "Fantasy football is just Dungeons and Dragons for sports jocks." Prove me wrong.
I saw a similar allegory for like fantasy football where it was like it's fan fiction for sports people.
Yeah.
But I don't know which one's more well aligned.
I think it's
more fan fiction instead of like D&D
Well, she and I
Maybe, because I don't know that they I don't know enough about fantasy football. I have enough friends that do it.
Fantasy football is very basic compared to like D&D. Like something else I point out too, and the thing I like about D&D is that it's cooperative. Like I guess you're technically playing against a dungeon master, but you're playing with like 5 or 6 of your friends to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Fantasy football isn't just like competitive against people, but like I've been in leagues. And like full disclosure, this is actually the first year I'm not doing fantasy football very deliberately in like 20 years. The passion for it has faded for me quite a bit because fantasy football has kind of gotten to the point where it's kind of just throwing darts at a board. The person whose team is the least injured is the one that wins the championship most years, unless you're an insanely good pivoter, and it's just too much work to put into something that's essentially just a chance. Also, there was somebody in my office who tried to conspire with me to cheat to win the office league like 3 years ago, which was the start of me really despising this person and losing respect for him.
Oh, Lord.
But also, like, at that point, I was kind of like, why would you do that over just a fantasy football league? And then
do you win anything?
So in this particular league, the person who tried to get me to cheat made a trophy for the league out of his own pocket and named it after himself. So,
and then wanted to
So
rig the
could
game
he
so he won his own trophy.
yeah, isn't that a funny thing?
Does he
Like,
have a
just-
therapist? Because they probably have a field day.
No, he
Yeah.
could benefit greatly from a therapist.
It sounds like it.
There are very few people that I really despise in this world because it takes a lot to get me to really dislike you. And this
a lot of effort.
This person is one of them, and that was kind of the. But also, I was in a stand-up comedians league last year, or for the last 3 years, Shannon. Did I tell you the story behind this?
No,
I kind of
didn't even know stand-up comics watched football.
Well, I
to
kinda-
be honest. Oh wait, you know what? Let me take that off the table. I do know they watch football because I just remembered who my friends are.
Yeah, well, so I kind of got kicked out of this league, actually, which was the first time it ever happened to me. And what happened was, like, I wasn't doing too well because, again, like, my attention level, I had other things I was interested in, which also wasn't fair to the people in the league, just throwing that out there. Like, Hal should not have done a league if he wasn't going to actually, like, play in it. And Damien proposed me a really terrible trade, essentially, which would have benefited him, but not really benefited me. But, like, the players he was trading me were somewhat interesting, and I was like, I could do this, and maybe it'll make it more interesting to, like, have some wild card players or something like that. But the trade was really bad because he was trading me for, like, one of the best players in the league, and I was getting, like, 2 sort of weird scrubs in response. And Casey very rightly, like, texted me angrily, like, screaming, like, how could you do that? That was a horrible trade. And I honestly answered, like, I did it just to kind of make things more interesting for me. But from her point of view, like, I did trade one of the best players for scrubs to somebody who was going to be in competition, and that was not a fair thing to do at all. So, which
gotcha.
I didn't consider, but Damien and I both got kicked out of the league for that.
See, that's the thing. Like, I just feel like they take it too seriously, and I just
It's
Yeah.
like fantasy. So, like, I
Yeah.
just think, like, if it's not, although we're saying that, but then we were just talking about how competitive we both are. I feel like if we got into it,
maybe
we would
all right,
get,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand it now, but as an outsider, like, same with
Yeah.
D&D, like, I've only ever experienced it as an outsider. I've watched other people play. And so as an outsider, I'm like, oh, like, you guys are getting way too involved and too heated.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I had actually...
if I was interested in it, if I was invested,
Yeah.
all right.
I think what
I feel
the
like that would change things for me.
I think what the dividing line here is that, like, you are competitive as a creator, and I think all of us are kind of competitive as creators. And Dungeons and Dragons, you are more creating the world and story as you're playing.
True.
Fantasy football, there's no creativity in it whatsoever,
That's true.
and the egos associated with usually the men, although lots of women get into, like, fantasy, obviously, as well. Like, the ego associated with winning your fantasy football league and, like, the amount of pride and self-worth that a lot of people put into winning a fantasy football league, I think, is entirely disproportionate to what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing that I would say that I would challenge about like me just being competitive with creatively is you can ask Austin Green if you ever have him on.
I would love to see Austin Green.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen him in forever.
He got to see a dark side of me by playing a game of Monopoly.
Oh, yeah.
Monopoly brings out the absolute worst in everybody.
I went 50 Shades of Crazy that night, and he was very amused by it. Because I apologized profusely afterwards. He's like, "No, that was fantastic. Like, I think I now like love you as a friend even more because of how crazy you are."
But that's a very sweet thing, actually. Like, loving your friends as you see sides of them that are not the picture perfect sides, I think, is the absolute definition of love.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so profound.
In this case, you're crazy and I love you is such a great
It is.
Yeah.
We're both crazy and we love each other.
Well,
It's
and I
great.
think it shows
We're
like a
very
passion
bonded.
that you
Yeah.
have for things. And like, I get hyper focused on a thing and I get passionate about it and I'll rant about it probably for several hours. But also, like, from a competitive standpoint, I'm the person who will be competitive in a situation where I know I'm going to lose. Like, where I just double down on it being so ridiculous that it would, like, Ryan is much faster than me, and I'll be like, let's race to that stop sign. And I'll put my heart and soul into it and still lose. And I'll be like, you cheated? My legs weren't working. My little brother had the controller.
You'd work well in politics, Shannon.
I was almost there. My degree is in political science.
There you go.
It's
Mine was
interesting.
government.
For all the years I've known you, I did not know that your degree was political science.
Yeah, I was going to be pre-law.
I knew
went
you were
to
thinking
law
about law
school.
school.
Yeah.
I forgot Sugey's a lawyer, too.
I did go to law school.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't get that far. The pandemic came about, and then I was like, shit, why do I don't want to go to law school anyway?
I wish I hadn't, but it's...
see, now validation. I
was
love
going to say, I actually tell people all the time that tell me that they want to become lawyers. It's like, can I recommend...
Not doing that?
Not even not doing that. Because obviously, like, some people, we obviously need lawyers, I think, for things.
Or at least we're told we need lawyers.
We're told we need them because we can't we can't civilly discuss things ourselves.
No, not
so
whatsoever.
we need somebody as an arbitrator. But they're it's just one of those things that I recommend, especially to young people like just graduating who are like, oh, that's just like the next thing I think I need to do. And I'm just like, how about you take like a year or two and just work at a law firm? See what that work is actually like, because there's the romanticized idea that you have from watching things like Law and Order or How to Get Away with Murder and all this other stuff, and it's just like it's not at all like that. Like I just talked to my niece. She's like, I want to be a lawyer, and I was like, why? She's all of like 13, and she's just like, I love arguing with people, and I was like, do you realize how little of your life is you arguing with people as a lawyer? And I was like, you told me you hate reading. That is all you do.
It's mostly research, honestly.
It's mostly research and reading contracts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I was like, it's a really like tedious sort of thing. And if it's not your thing.
That was what my sister wanted to be a lawyer pretty much from the start. Like she was exactly like you described with your niece. And she did take a year off before law school, but she went basically right into law school after that year. And she does love arguing, and she's very good at lawyering. But I do hear that it's a very stressful job for her in general. And we actually have one of our close friends in our circle, Karen Kay, if you're listening. Karen is a mother of 6. Also was in Barnaby with Shannon.
Yes.
That's the only movie I ever got her in. But yeah, during the pandemic, she went to law school, actually, and became a lawyer. And she's now a public defender in, I think it's...
Carlisle? Well, she lives in Carlisle.
I think she's Adams County is a public defender. Okay. And she actually had a very funny story she was telling me the other day. 2 of her clients got into a fight with each other in prison, like enough so that charges are being filed. Oh, wow. And she's like, who do I represent in this case? I can't represent both of them.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought that was a funny.
I wonder if you can recuse yourself from both. Because
Probably.
You're just like,
Conflict
sorry,
of
that's a
interest.
conflict of interest. So I have to I can't represent either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my dad.
That seems like an easy out to me.
I think so.
Those are my favorite outs.
My favorite outs.
My dad, who is like the consummate legal mind, was saying that her boss would probably just reassign her, and she wouldn't like have either of them, like you were saying.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But yeah, lawyering is very interesting. Like my whole family and my whole like family circle of friends were all attorneys growing up, and still are because most of them are still alive. So like all of these like talks are like everything revolves around legality growing up. And I did consider going to law school at one point, but I saw how expensive it was, and I was like, do I really want to do this as a living? And the answer is no. So,
well, for me, like I graduated from Penn State in December 2019, and
right before everything went down.
And honestly, it took me 5.5 years to get my degree, so I was already kind of over it. In general, in terms of school, and I had been working full time the entire time.
Yeah.
Like when it came to my graduation, I was working like 60, 70 hour weeks.
Oh God!
Just at AMC.
And you were still doing like.
And I was doing full time school.
Oh.
And
wow.
comedy, and I had a boyfriend and like all this stuff. So
pre-pandemic was a weird time for energy.
So then all of a sudden I had nothing, and I was like, all right, let's have a come to Jesus moment with myself and decide, is this going to be what it's going to be? And I decided, I'm sick of school. I'm sick of like scrambling to get by. I'm 20 whatever years old. I don't remember, 24 or 25 years old. I just want to get started on a career and see what that does. So got into banking, which was weird because I never really saw myself in banking, and then I kind of fell in love with it. So, and actually the pre-law background that I have is really helpful in banking for sure. Mm-hmm. And I've learned that I despise lawyers. Because you would not believe how many lawyers call the bank and they're just like, I'm the lawyer and this is what it is. And I'm like, no, that is not what it is.
You are the lawyer, and that is an interpretation of what it is.
That is an interpretation. Like you're trying to fine tune this contract. And it's not really what.
Right. I had a argument with a lawyer over acronyms. Because his argument to me was there was no way that the acronym could stand for what I was saying it stood for because the letters weren't the same. Because I was saying it was attorney in fact, and the banking acronym for that is ATF, and he said it can't be ATF attorney in fact because in has an I and not a T, and I was like, I am going to
murder you,
lose my shit.
Yeah.
There's a T in attorney, and that's why there's a T in the acronym.
You know what that makes me think of, Shannon, immediately is performance is easy as cracking eggs.
Yes! Oh, my God.
We have a friend at our comedic circles who, his name is Jibba Jab Peace, and it's because peace is for performance as easy as cracking eggs. Which doesn't quite work, but it works just enough.
I love it.
I know.
I think it's like... So here's the thing I love about him in general is that I don't think I've ever had a conversation where I knew exactly what was going on. And now I see his posts on Facebook, and I love him. I do. Like,
I haven't seen him for a long time, actually.
I love him so much. He's just so friendly, I think, because I don't know what he's saying. But, like, he hugs me every time I see him. Like, he's so fun. And so I thought to myself, like, oh, if we're friends on Facebook, he'll post things on Facebook, and those will make sense, right? Because I was like, when you speak out in your words, sometimes it just doesn't
translate.
No, it's just as unintelligible.
Oh, wow.
It is wild.
Yeah.
I find it's like fucking National Treasure trying to figure out what he's saying on Facebook, and I love it.
I used to run into him all the because Jibba Jab is a very good traveler around Harrisburg, and I used to run into him in weird places back when, I had the energy to go on like 20, 30-mile bike rides every single day, and I would just randomly run into him in places around Harrisburg, like, Jibba Jab, hey, Al, how's it going?
Yeah, I run in,
Is he a young person?
No,
he's like 45-ish.
I was going to say, because the older I get, the more that, like, I definitely, like, when when I talk to younger people and, like, all their little, like, colloquialisms and things that they say.
It's not even that, though. It's
I just don't understand what the hell
first of all, the way
about.
he speaks, and this is not a
Oh no,
like
we love the way he
I
speaks in a not ironic way. Like, we actually love him.
Yeah.
He mumbles. And so, like, you're trying to figure out what words he's using, but then when you determine which words he's using, those don't even make sense. And
Together.
so
But there's the funny thing about him is it's not just confidence in the way he's saying things, but just everything works very succinctly in his mind, and he presents it as everything is working succinctly, and this is the way the world is. And so you love it because, like, at its core, I think comedy is like being transported into somebody else's line of thinking and their reality. And, like, that's why he's such an entertaining performer, is because, he has a different view on reality than everyone else, and you just want to get inside of his mind for 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's nice too. Like, there are some minds that do not are
You
not
don't
like
want to
that.
enter. Yeah.
There's a difference between just being an interesting individual and doing meth on the regular, I think.
Or just
I would
just
hope
being
anyway.
an individual who's interesting but hateful at the same time.
Although I went to college, not meth, but I went to college with someone who was not my year, but he was like 2 years younger. But he became like the sort of the valedictorian of
Oh.
our school. And he used to have in his little mini fridge a line of acid. And so like before he would write his papers and stuff, he would
just microdose on acid or something.
I don't know that he microdosed. I don't know that like we had the theories about microdosing back then or anything like that. But like I was just shocked that somebody could function that way, and not only just function, but then like successfully function.
It just turned him normal enough to write
Yeah,
papers.
I guess. I was just like, your brain is like fascinating to me.
When I was at Penn State, one of my pre-law classes was civil liberties and due process because my focus was going to be constitutional law. And so
Man, you had lofty aspirations.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
I did. And there weren't very many people in that class, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
And so there were like 5 of us, and almost all of us were girls. And our professor was fantastic, by the way. I loved him so much. I think about him to this day. And I have another story about him after this story, and this is how the podcast works.
Yeah.
And
That's okay.
What was it that we were originally going to talk about?
I
Oh,
don't even
Sugey. We still have time.
So there was a girl in my class and we hung out. Like we would write papers in the same room together in the sense of hanging out. And so I showed up to class and she had some coffee and I was like, Rashika, I really would appreciate it if I could have some of that. And she was like, yeah, sure. And I took a drink and it was straight liquor.
Oh.
And I was like, Rashika, what are you doing? She was like, it's been a hard day.
Yeah, that's so actually I had the 2 of the first people I ever had to fire at Hershey Park. That's what happened, is that like they were drinking vodka out of like bottles down at the bottom of the Western Shootout. Does anybody remember that ride?
No.
Yes. Is that? No, I'm thinking of the whip.
Yeah, the Western Shootout was just the giant wooden slide thing that you'd walk up like 100 stairs, and there were 4 slides at the top. It's where Fahrenheit is now.
I don't remember that at Hershey Park, but I feel like I've ridden a similar ride somewhere else.
Yeah. The interesting, like, I was just kind of thinking about this as we were saying that, but like I spent a lot of time at Hershey Park in my college years, and like, what was it, like 12 to 13 hours a day for almost every single day over the summer. And a lot of the places I spent them at don't exist anymore. Like
Weird.
Western Shootout and Canyon River Rapids were like 2 of the big ones.
I miss Canyon River Rapids.
Yeah.
I loved that one.
Rapids was the like most. I really feel like Canyon River Rapids helped me learn how to manage a film set, strangely, because like the thing with Canyon River Rapids was because you had people in like all those towers all around, and it took a sizable amount of time to actually like send people in a rotation. It took usually half an hour to switch positions there. And if you had a lot of minors, which we did at Hershey Park, they were on a ticking clock to take their break before they violated child labor laws. So it was it was a very stressful job figuring out rotations there.
Yeah.
But it taught me like how to multitask a little bit. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because you're also loading boats the entire time while you're trying to figure out a rotation.
Yeah. So then the professor that we had, he and his wife both worked at Penn State, and they were both professors that I had. And one of them is from Turkey, and the other one is from France. And so,
Real quick, do you remember what the name of your professor from Turkey was?
oh yeah, I was getting there. So that was Dr. Talai.
Oh, okay. Because my next door neighbor is a professor at Penn State who's from Turkey, so
Oh, wow.
different person. But
Yeah. So, but the funny thing is, like, so I was getting to that because with the names, Dr. Talai, who was from Turkey, that's how he said their last name. But because his wife was from France, she said Tolay. And so it took me a minute to figure out that they were married because
you thought there were 2 different names.
right. And so he, at one point during class, he was like, my wife says our last name wrong. And I was like, holy shit, is Juliet your wife? But anyway, so Dr. Talai was doing a letter of recommendation for me for law school. I was like getting real far into the law school process at this point. And he asked me, where are you planning to go to law school? And I was like, well, I haven't really nailed down. I have a couple of places in mind, applications out and stuff. And I told him, I was like, well, there's a law school I want to go to in Tucson, Arizona. I think that might be the one I go to because I have family nearby. And I said, I might just stick around here and go to like Dickinson or something. And he stopped me and he was just like, do not stay here. Here is good for Cal. You are not Cal. And I was like, that gets me through the day. Like, just every once in a while, I just think to myself, you are not Cal. And I'm just like, I deserve better than this.
Add that to the list of
t-shirts.
T-shirts.
Yes.
I am not cow.
I am not cow.
That's right.
So yeah, Sugey, since we brought you on here to actually talk about like your experiences and stuff.
We got there. It only took like 20 minutes.
I mean, this is kind of like I was telling her, it's more of a conversation with an individual anyway.
It's perfect.
But yeah, like you wanted to talk a little bit about like, because Cold is still in the middle of its crowdsourcing campaign, right?
Yes. So we are in our final week. So we are about, I think this morning, 13% away. So very close to getting full funding, which would be nice because then we can actually pay our crew, which would be fabulous.
I think they would like that.
They would appreciate that. And we would appreciate it because like it's always nicer. I mean, it's not like top living, but like, you know, it's still nice to be able to say like we did and we were able to provide adequate housing. We were able to provide like adequate food because like we're asking them to like also like go into Wyalusing, Pennsylvania, which I don't know if you guys know where that is.
I've never heard of it.
Is it like left of Wyomissing, Pennsylvania?
So, no, no. So if you know where the Poconos is, Stroudsburg, it's like another 2 hours north of that.
Another 2 hours north of the Poconos.
There's more things above the Poconos.
There's more things above the Poconos, and so I mean, and the ideal thing is it's called Cold, so it will be pretty. It was already pretty chilly. Greg was telling me from when he was like fixing up the place like a week ago. So by the time we film in early October, it should be nice and
very cool
and chilly. So, but we're asking people to like do that. So like we obviously need to provide them housing, we need to give them food, all that kind of stuff. Heat, obviously. My character can be cold, but they shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's.
But yeah, so it's nice because then it's and also it's getting it out of the way before we have to do all that stuff because since I'm also the lead character, I want to get as much of the production stuff out of the way.
Yeah, because you're also like an ace producer in addition to being like, like seriously, like I've worked with a lot of people who are producers-ish around Pennsylvania, and you're probably the most involved one because you're the one who always gets everything done for everybody. And I've always really admired that because like you help with everybody's, like if somebody who's worked with you or crossed paths with you is like, I have this crazy idea for a feature or short I want to do. Sugey is usually all in on helping them get it done, which I really have always appreciated. And
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think like if you're at least willing to meet me halfway in terms of like, okay, this is what this is going to take, and this is how involved it's going to be. So like I'm simultaneously working with Chris Rupert on post-production for Transient. And so that's a whole involved process. So like we're both like sitting there trying to figure out all sorts of like paperwork and everything else so that we can try to distribute it, you know, and you know, make as much money as I know that's dirty. Make as much money as you possibly can with it, but also like get it seen. Like that's the reverse side of it, right? Is get it seen in as many places as possible because, you know, one of the things that's super annoying is like we went to go talk to an investor pre-making Transient, and we originally just needed like $5,000 extra, just as contingency money, just like little things that always happen, like here and there. He had said he was going to do it, and then
didn't.
Not only didn't, but then was like, "I'll double down. I'll give you 10."
Oh,
but there's always the but, right?
I thought when you said double down, I thought he took money away from you.
Oh no! There was no way he money. No, we didn't owe him anything. But like he was like, "No, I'll give you more." But you need to recast your two leads because they're not names.
Fuck
and I was like, first of all, this shows how little you know about our industry. Who the fuck am I going to get for $10,000, let alone two people? Second of all, the whole point is to have contingency money so that we feel a little bit more comfort. If I'm hiring, like you're now adding cost to us as opposed to alleviating cost. And also, we already have contracts with these two actors. They're fantastic actors. They're from Pennsylvania. We want to be able to hire Pennsylvania talent. And I was like, screw you. I know. And like the flip side of that, obviously, is that for selling a movie and everything else, it is theoretically easier to sell it if you have a quote unquote name. But like we also have this like warped definition of what a name is these days. Like there's like times that I'm like, somebody's like, oh, and I'm on this set and it has blah, blah, blah. Just because I don't want to like insult anybody, but I'm just like, it has this person, and I'm just like, who's that? And they're like, they were a villain in like this obscure movie 30 years ago. And I was like, I vaguely remember the actual stars of that movie. I was like, do you think I remember who that is? Like, so it's just, we have this like warped idea of what that means. And, so it's I'm in the process right now of like helping Chris with getting that distributed as well. So, but like he was a fantastic person to work with in the sense of I have this idea. Like we started working on Transient. The first I'd really seen of it, and obviously I think it was actually a vid jam. He submitted a short that was kind of like a proof of concept idea of it, which was called Memory Leak. So
I don't remember this vid jam at all. So
it might have been a vid jam. He might have just done it for Bad Movie Night. I don't remember. But
whatever
like
his movies that he submitted for vid jam, I always thought were spectacular because him and Ian would put together these like really high effects stuff out of nowhere. Yeah, and just like the two of them would cobble together like. Usually gerbil related too. So.
Yeah, yep. There was a lot of very pig treble.
Or guinea pig, yeah.
Guinea pig. There was a lot of guinea pig. We did Fun Time with Borfy.
Yeah, Borfy is a guinea pig.
Fun Time with Borfy, mine and Austin's.
That was hysterical.
One of my favorite moments still to this day is calling Austin a wanker. Because that was just like totally, now I'm getting ADD.
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. But yeah, I just remember we just decided we were going to have fun because like it was very similar to sometimes when we've done vid jams where like all of a sudden last minute it was just Chris. And, like trying to be on camera. He had to do effects, he had to do sound.
That sounds familiar.
And so Austin and I were like, okay, so this is how this is gonna go. Okay, cool. So then we were just like, can we just have fun with this then? And Chris was like, sure. Just do whatever you guys want. Yeah. And so then cameras are about to roll and I just turn around and look at Chris and I was like, can I be British? And he's like, sure. So randomly for no reason.
You wanker.
And so I just, every single curse word that he put into the script for me to call Austin, I switched to like a British one. So me calling Austin a wanker was probably one of my favorite moments in my acting journey.
Was a quick question: was Austin Borfy in Mary Posmus too?
Posmus, yeah.
Or Posmus.
Yeah. So Austin was not. Well, okay. So Borfy ended up being 3 different people in Fun Time with Borfy. Not in Posmus. In Posmus, it was just Austin.
Did you guys just alternate who was Borfy, who was not on camera at that moment?
Pretty much. So
awesome.
AJ Nutter. Tyler Transu, and so Tyler Transu is the first Borfy. He was the original Borfy.
All these fun people you're mentioning I haven't seen in years too.
Yeah, and then so he was the first Borfy. Then AJ was, I think he was the last one. He's the one that like when I'm like, get away from her, you bitch, which is like obviously an Aliens reference. Which is why that's in it. People are like, wait, is she not British in that part? And that's why, is because it's an Alien reference. So like we wanted it to be closer to what that is. But yeah, that's AJ when I'm like jabbing him. But then in between, Austin was kind of doing it when we were just doing my sides of things. And like we didn't have a Borfy temporarily.
A temp Borfy.
A temp Borfy. So
insert Borfy here in post-production.
Borfy here. So yeah, so for Fun Time with Borfy, there were 3 Borfys. For Posmus, it was just Austin. Yeah. And he was fantastic. And Lily, who's Chris's daughter, who's been in a bunch of guinea pig related
And she was
films.
in Mary Posmus too, right?
Yeah, so she plays our daughter in Transient as well.
Oh, yeah, Chris had mentioned that, I remember, when we were doing like a walkthrough of my house at one point.
Yeah, so because Posmus is actually a tongue-in-cheek sort of prequel to Transient.
It's so funny you say that because like when like I was going down there to help you with that, just the one day you were doing it, I was under the impression, especially like since Greg was there too, that this was Transient like pickup work you were doing. And then I saw Greg with like longer hair and I'm like, oh, that's not going to match anything they shot earlier. And
yeah. So that one is just, we just wanted to do a Christmas special, and then we were just like, like it's going to be, Greg and I actually joke about this all the time in the sense that like it's such, because his mom has told him a bunch of times, like, I wish you would do lighter work.
Yeah, Transient's pretty heavy from what I've seen of it.
It's pretty heavy. It's pretty dark. But in general, like all of his stuff, if you've seen Foxes, if you have ever seen the trailer for Score, that's not out yet, but like even the work that he's done with like Jamie Root or anything else, he's always playing these like super dark characters and these super intense roles. He's died a bunch of times in different movies. And so his mom, who's like this like salt of the earth, like nice lady, is just like, could you just do something fun and cute? Like do like something Hallmarky. And so like as kind of almost like a joke at one point, I was like, I've always wanted to do a Christmas movie. He's like, my mom would appreciate me doing something like that. So we just kind of worked with Chris and made sure he was okay with it, and we just made Promise. And it's a very, very hard left turn from what that portrays.
Will it be a special feature on the DVD?
Like, Transient is. So it's sort of this. I mean, it touches on like a little bit of it. We are a couple that has issues and that kind of stuff, but like obviously we resolve them in this very sweet, cute way for a Christmas special because that's what you want on the Christmas special. But then it just kind of goes. So fair warning.
Man, I'm never gonna be able to watch that movie again. Apparently, when I see Transient, so
you might not be able to. But or you could just be like, for lighter times.
Yeah.
For lighter times, this will be good.
It's funny. My mom has actually said, like, I used to play a lot more music before I was more into film stuff, and a lot of the stuff I wrote was like very. Like Dashboard Confessional, but like darker and sadder stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, Hal, you need to smile more and sing more upbeat songs. You're so handsome when you smile. I don't know why my mom becomes an old Jewish lady whenever I tell. Like,
You tell stories.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're just so handsome.
Yeah. Well, that was, my mom had a big, she had a big bugaboo about my hair until recently because I just got, like, I didn't do a haircut for a year, which you probably didn't necessarily see because you haven't seen me for a year.
I did, though, see
The
your
video,
Instagram video that where you were like, absolutely going into like Pantene commercial territory. It's fantastic.
I wish I'd done that in slow motion.
I
But
like the haircut, though. It looks good.
it feels so good.
I bet, yeah. I mean, I can't believe you went through the entire summer when it was like 100 degrees outside with that mop
Right,
on your
and
head.
like cut it now for when it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
I wanted to go. Well, I also wanted to go like just a whole year to get like achievement unlocked. 1 year, no haircut.
Fair.
But also, the only person who really liked the long hair, or at least was honest about liking the long hair, was Lauren. And I'm like, well, if it's one person I'm gonna appease with my looks, it might as well be my girlfriend. So
Yeah, exactly.
But then I just didn't like. It was, in fact, when I told her, I'm like, yeah, I got a haircut. And she's like, oh, bye-bye, mad scientist hair. I will miss you. And I'm like, I can wear a wig. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
But yeah, but yeah, getting back to film stuff too. I meant to ask you, did you meet Greg on Transient? Like, is that where you two first knew each other?
So we had actually, yes and no. So in the sense that like that was the first time we like officially then like became friends and like were able to collaborate and that kind of stuff. But we actually first met for my first callback ever to something like theoretically that was going to be bigger, and then like he was one of the people I was paired with. So we ended up figuring that out like later, and it's like, oh, you did that thing too. And it's just like, oh, cool. And so we had actually like met, I think it was January of 2019.
Oh, nice. And so again, right before, or no, that was a year before, I guess,
It was
everything.
like that
4
was
months.
a pretty active year for me because like I had that show that was supposed to be a show, but then it ended up getting they didn't raise enough money for it.
It happens all the time. Like, I was actually going through an old drive of mine recently, and I forgot totally that, like, the first thing I really tried to do in Harrisburg when I moved back here was I had this, like, 7-episode, like, full half-hour, like, sitcom I'd written about working in reality TV.
Yeah.
That we had done, like, auditions for. We had cast. We actually were, like, doing rehearsals for the first episode. And then the director, I wanted to be in it, so I chose somebody else to direct it. And that was a mistake because this person like wanted to completely redo my script all of a sudden and redo everything. And I'm like, come on, man! Like, you can have input, but you're like tearing up exactly what I hired you to do for no money. So like,
yeah, I mean that happens more often than you think. That's why I think like you absolutely I have a very, and I think that's the thing. I have a very collaborative sort of role. And so my ADHD brain is reminding me of what I was trying to say earlier about about the situation.
It's all cyclical,
with Rupert. So he sent me Transient while I was in Montana. So it was during the pandemic, but he sent me Transient while I was in Montana.
Was this for The Old Way when you were shooting that one, or was this a different movie?
I think I was there so this is my second time there. So he would have sent it to me November of 2019.
Okay.
Something like that. Or 2020. It was November of 2020. And it was for Butcher's Crossing. Also a Nick Cage film, but it was...
Man, you have a very big niche with Nick Cage films set in Montana.
I swabbed his nose for at least an average of 3 times a week for 8 weeks.
So you know Nicolas Cage's nose better.
His nose really well. So he's nice.
I was gonna say, was his nose friendly?
His nose was friendly. He was actually like really sweet because he would. I would be like, I always ask people because especially given whatever his position on set, whatever. Would you like to do it yourself? And I can tell you what to do. And he was like, no, you're the expert. And so it was kind of like our little.
I visualized it and I was like, yep, that looks right.
Yeah, and he was just, so it actually almost became like our thing.
That's hilarious.
I would always ask, and then he would be like, no.
You're the expert.
You're the expert. And so it was actually really, really, really sweet. So that was our special moment 3 times a week.
I love that for you.
Thanks. It was your special moment. But yeah, Chris sent me the script for Transient. It was November 2020, and then I told him because there was a lot of AI and technical stuff. So I was like, I'd like to have someone read this, which is Rich, obviously. Rich is my husband, and so I had him read the script and sort of be as a technical consultant for some of the AI stuff.
That's cool. So your husband does a lot of AI stuff?
Yeah, that he's an AI engineer.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, he's an AI engineer and he has a patent for some stuff that we're doing through a company called BestieBot. And so you'll actually see...
Is that going to be a best friend as a bot?
Kind of, yeah. So he's trying to create something for people who have Alzheimer's and severe autism and things like that and where it came from is obviously, since I have a son who has severe autism, is this realization as we're getting older, he is so out of choice wanting to be more isolated that the 4 people that he mostly spends time with are my parents, who are 83 and 75 and, us. And so he's just there will be a time when, obviously we are not around and, or, potentially, obviously you never know how life works. But so it kind of came out of this idea and this discussion of we wanted to be able to have something that would give him comfort so that it's at least an idea of us.
That's cool.
That could remain, or of somebody. So whether it's my mom or whatever. And so
it's very Black Mirror in a couple of ways.
It kind of is, but it's obviously it's not quite there yet. Yeah. So right now it's kind of in its first stages, and he has grants and stuff. So he's been working on that. But so he is an AI engineer, and he went through the script and talked to Chris and was just a lot of this does make sense, but this needs fine-tuned here. So that a lot of the conversations that both Greg and Eric Melrogny, who plays Bill,
the other main character. Remember Eric too, because Eric knew he knew my friend Andrew Glessner from a couple of movies he worked on, and Wes. I'm so sad that I missed Wes, by the way. When he was when he was actually in my house. And it took he took pictures around my house too, and it took a year for me to finally see them. But Wes is somebody I don't see. I see Andrew Glessner all the time. Well, Shannon and I both do, because he's one of the kings of our comedy scene, and he's usually running the mics or something like that. But I see Wes very, very rarely, because he's around Philadelphia, I guess.
He is Philly, and he is actually about ready to. Speaking of someone who made a huge change from something that he made like as a short film.
Oh, Stalked.
He made Stalked. So he has like a $1 million+ film he's doing now, a feature in New Jersey for Stalked.
Yeah, Andrew's been talking a little bit about like he hasn't given tons of detail. Have you talked with Glessner recently, Shannon, about
Not recently, no.
about Stalked? Like, so Stalked was this short that. Are you familiar with that at least? Or?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, like for our listeners, it was a short that him and Wes did. Like they also do the Trick or Treat shorts, which are also like in millions of views every year, and they're expanding like Stalked into a feature length film, which I think is going to be very cool. In fact, like Stalked, when they were taking that on the festival circuit, there were a couple of like shorts I had done that like. I think Wallace had directed them, so I wasn't in charge of like submitting them to festivals. And Glessner would come up to me at a mic and be like, "Hey, I saw that movie you did at the like the Mercersburg Festival," and I'm like, "I need more. I didn't submit any movies to a Mercersburg Festival." But it's so fun, like when you have people like because we're all artsy people around here, so it's a lot of fun when like our worlds intersect with each other.
Oh yeah.
Like Glessner, it's kind of fun that we have like so many mutual friends like in filmmaking and stuff like that, and like. I think it's kind of cool because like when I've said a couple times, when I lived here until 2011 is when I moved to LA, there wasn't really much of an art scene outside of like the local theater. And then I came back here and there's like an improv theater. There's like a bustling stand-up community. There's a burgeoning film community because like I've said a couple times on the podcast, the first year I was back here, I really wanted to make movies with people. And I like set out a Craigslist ad and I got one response from one guy who never met up with me. And that was basically the whole of my entire like not for lack of trying. I couldn't find any film friends until I found VidJam, and then that kind of like became my connector for all those things. So,
when I've honestly like a lot of the people that I have, that's always something that I am very appreciative of for VidJam is that like a lot of the people that I've eventually collaborated with, like that's how I met Chris Rupert. That's, I mean, everybody knows Austin Green now from VidJam because there was the
Green,
1 year was it in like 5 of them.
He is a Pennsylvania treasure, Austin Green.
I was going to say this, and I'm glad that we've come back around to Austin because I only worked with him one time, and he is one of my favorite people. And I just, from the dentist, like it was so much fun shooting with him. He was hilarious. And
what was he taking you to? The Apple Bottom Festival or something?
Were you the lady that like he's like walking? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And I just, oh my gosh, had such a blast with him. And I've only gotten to interact with him a few times, but he's such a pleasure to be around.
Yeah, he's literally one of my favorite people.
Me too. The funny thing, like we were talking about meeting people in other ways. I actually met Austin at the Improv Theater. Like I didn't meet him through film. Like in fact, like he had longer hair back then.
Yeah.
And he strongly resembled a guy I went to high school with, like facially. So at first I thought it was this guy Marcus I'd gone to high school with, but also Austin's like 15 years younger than me. So but like Austin was like the sweetest person. Like he would like usually sometimes there was an older woman that did improv with us that we would walk to our car every like time when we were done at the bar or something like that. And Austin would always be like, "Oh, I'll go with you guys." And then we'd have talks like on the way back. And he's just like a sweet guy. And it's so fun that like he's found his niche with the film stuff because he's so good at it. And I always wish he had stayed more with improv too because he sort of like, he only had time to take I think level 1 and 2 before he moved on to other things. But he's such a funny and also serious guy when he needs to be. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing is, I met him first in Brad Hawkins' acting class.
Oh, I forgot about Brad's acting.
Yeah, so that was actually the first time I met him. And like, I remember I was sitting next to Shelley Koch and like he said something about like he worked at a winery and we're like, oh yeah. We're all clearly going to be great friends. But it was actually more, he had a semblance. I remember my first conversation with him. I was like, you have a semblance to like
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. I was like, you has anybody ever
it.
told you that you kind of look like Keanu Reeves' like younger brother? And he was just like, is that because I'm so tiny and skinny? And I was like, I mean, I didn't say that, but I mean, but yeah, he was very sweet. But yeah, we got to work. I'm trying to think of how many movies we've done together.
Probably too many to count.
probably like 5 or 6, maybe more.
Oh, that's it? I would have thought.
I was going to say probably actually even more. Like if I actually look at the roster, it's probably actually even more. But I remember that it's so funny because we do have this very loving sibling relationship that we had to do a couple of movies where we had to play like boyfriend and girlfriend. And thankfully, they're always either have animosity towards each other or not because we would, but you know what I mean? Like when you have more of a sibling relationship with each other, like we're both like literally
You don't want to
going
be like uncomfortable. And,
like I was like, I don't have to make out with you, right? Oh, good. All right.
Yeah.
So we're good here. Because we did do this very sweet film where it probably would have made sense if we had actually had to kiss, but it was called After Sophia. And so, yeah, you did drone footage. For us for that.
Still wait. Like, I'll see After Sophia post something on Instagram, and that's how I remember it was a movie. It was like,
yeah, it's still there. So we had to do some pickups. So that one was weird because we had to film it during the pandemic.
Yeah, I remember that.
And therefore, there were just some things that when we did the edit, we're like, oh, like we need to. So we actually had to reshoot some stuff with Marquise because Marquise is in it as well. So we just did that at the beginning of this year. And then we still have like one more pickup thing that we need to do. And then pretty much that's done. So like that'll actually like, it's just funny because it's just like been like, After Sophia. 3 years in the making.
You know, I was thinking about that because, like on the one hand, I was like, wow, it's been a long time and After Sophia isn't done yet. But then I was counting, like, it took about 3 years, I want to say, for me to finish Pretendagers when we had that in the can. Because, like, editing a feature and then just getting everything under wraps just takes forever. With me, also, my computer died a couple of times within the framework of working on that feature. And so we finished shooting that in like 2013, and I think it came out in December of 2016. So it was about 3 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, especially since we're all like adults with jobs and stuff, it can take a while.
It can take a while. Well, I mean, and like I said, with Transient, it was like we started in that November of 2020. The next year, it was all prepping stuff, and we did a crowdfunding campaign for that. And then the following year was when we actually got the cast, got the crew, and like filmed the actual movie. And then all of this year has been editing, and then like we still obviously have to wait for like distribution and everything else. So like it's
a gauntlet.
It's a actually involved process to do a feature.
This is why I don't want to do features anymore, honestly, because like I had a feature that we started shooting in like 2016 that I just like gave up on because we ran into trouble with actors. I didn't know this until like after the movie was already in the shitter. But my lead actor had actually made some passes at one of my producers that got her to quit the movie, but she didn't tell me why she was quitting the movie. And then after she quit the movie, he was like in a sour mood the entire time and was sort of had a lot of animosity towards people. And like, yeah, it was a huge mess. Yeah. But after that, like, I'm kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, maybe I'll do a 20-minute movie, but it's just too much work. It's too involved. And like, I'd rather just have fun with my friends rather than get emotionally invested in something that I'm financially committed to.
It's interesting. Like it happens it just made me think of it. It happens so often, and like you would think that after like the Me Too movement, like some of that stuff would like have gone away. Sadly, there was 5 of us that had to report someone from a camera department on a big. I don't want to say the movie.
Yeah, as long as it's vague.
On a big movie set that I was on, and I was not acting in it. It was all members of the crew that had gotten accosted by this person, and it was accosted is the right word because like here's the thing is I'm always kind of like I'm not so frail that like you can't like if you don't know that like I'm off the table, like you know I can understand like oh like I find you attractive, like I can come up and like ask you out, and I was like okay, but once I say no, so this was just like 5 in.
Oh my God.
Like I was just like
the answer's not going to change, buddy.
The answer's not going to change. And he's like, "Well, I really like you." And it's like, "I don't care."
Thank you, I guess. Yeah.
Like, thank you. I was already being like super polite, and like it got to the point where it was actually so awkward that a grip friend of mine from set who was my son's age. So like this made me feel even worse. He was like, I'll take care of it. And I'm thinking like he's going to take care of it. Like you're a tall dude. Like you're, like you could just probably
Crack some knuckles.
Yeah, like just like, shift a little weight. I'm like, don't hurt him. Like, because I don't want to like do that kind of stuff. And I don't want you getting in trouble. But like, I thought like that's what he meant. Nope. He put his arm around me. He's like, she's coming home with me. And I was like, no!
No!
That's not what I meant.
I mean,
that is not how we solve the problem.
You get a B- for effort, I guess.
I mean, like, it did make the situation go away, but it was like, I'm having an affair with someone on set who is like my child's age.
Oh, it makes me...
That's great. That's fabulous. I love this journey for me.
That's HBO television right there.
Yeah, I was like, no, that's not how I thought you were taking. When you said you were going to take care of it, that's not how I thought you were.
It sort of reminds me of the end of like there's a Simpsons episode where the town gets overrun by lizards, and at the end they're like, well, what are we going to do about the lizards? And Principal Skinner's like, oh, it's cool. We have this species of snake we're breeding to take out the lizard. Okay, what do we do with the snakes then? Oh, that's great. There are these gorillas that we're going to get from the southeast of Africa who eat snakes and take care of them. But then we're stuck with gorillas. Oh, no worries. The gorillas will just die when the weather gets cold.
Oh my God.
And that's kind of what that reminds me of. I was like, I guess we band-aided it, but we created a whole nother problem.
I mean, thankfully it was the last day of set, so it was just like, whatever. I don't think this is gonna like, But it was just kind of like the thought that I was like, ugh.
This happened often, like you were saying, like there were a couple of productions I worked on just in reality TV where that happened. And one of the prominent ones I can remember is, again, I won't say what production, but I was working on a show in Portland that we had traveled up the coast for this particular show. Like we started in LA, we went to San Francisco, and then Portland was the third stop for this particular show we were shooting. And thankfully it was just a PA, so he didn't have any like authority on set. But one of the groups of, we'll say, contestants on this show were like a bunch of really attractive younger women from New York, and he got like totally blitz drunk one night and just like accosted is again the right word, and followed them up to like their hotel room, like forced his way in, and then passed out drunk on their floor, I guess thankfully, and they couldn't move him at all, and he was on like a train home the next day. Like he was completely gone, and everybody was talking about what happened, and all of us were kind of like, why would you do that? Like especially when you're at work.
Yeah, well, I mean, the creepiest thing this guy did was actually to the girl that was my roommate. She was just sitting talking to somebody else, and all of a sudden, like, he was under the table, like,
oh my God,
massaging her feet.
No.
And she was like, okay, like, we're good, like, enough. And he was like, I want to lick your tattoos with my tongue. And I was like,
oh my God.
like, he was creep. He was
no, that's beyond creep. That's like get out.
Yeah, it was definitely
I didn't like that at all.
No,
I don't like this story.
No, like,
but it is important to tell, I think.
Yeah. So it was definitely
like, how do you get that idea and just are like, this is totally fine.
My interesting thing was the next day we all got sort of text messages from said individual, and it was like an apology saying like, oh, I just like got really drunk. And I was like, well,
that's not an excuse.
I was like, that's not an excuse. And here's the thing: if you know that alcohol does affect you to that degree, then you are probably an alcoholic, and you should probably get that checked.
Yeah.
Because that's not acceptable. Any behavior.
No.
That's not even workplace behavior. Like, that's not acceptable. You should be walking around the street behavior.
I have a lot of friends who have gotten quite drunk in my presence and behaved like inappropriately.
Never
and I've
had one.
No, never had one who wanted to lick somebody's tattoos off
with their, it was pretty heinous. But anyway, going back to, do you want to talk about some like grief stuff? I don't know.
How much time do we have?
We have like 15 to 20 minutes. So yeah,
we can do that.
Actually, before we get that, like let's reset for a second, because you mentioned Brad Hawkins' acting class just a second ago too, and on a happier note, I kind of wish, Shannon, that I'd known you when this class was going on, because I think you would have really enjoyed this. And it's actually where I think I met you in this class, right, Sugey?
Mm-hmm. I met you and Gary and Jackie.
Yeah, because it was me, Wallace, Jackie, and Gary were all taking this class after we'd done a bunch of movies together. And we wanted to, like, Wallace and I wanted to learn to direct, honestly, a little bit better. Because Brad, one thing you could say about Brad is he's very good at directing actors and very good at getting with them. And so that was very useful. Like, for especially Wallace and me, we were saying it was kind of like a master class of, like, we get to act in a scene for like 10 minutes, but then we get to watch how he acts with other actors for like an hour and a half. And so we met you and Gabe there. I'm trying to think who else.
Gabe's another one of my favorite all-time individuals.
I'm so happy because Gabe is. I haven't seen Gabe. I occasionally run into him at the gym, but other than that, I haven't seen Gabe in like 3 years. And he's gonna be in the Horror Vid Jam with us.
Yay!
So
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah,
he's acting in it.
yeah, Gabe is one of my all-time favorites. Like that was such a fun class because it was a good combination of just getting people in there to get to know each other with a shared interest. And I had a lot of fun. It didn't last for very long, Brad's class, though. Like, maybe a year?
No, and actually, it's funny that, like, for so many of us, it started at the beginning. I mean, it was maybe, like, a year and a half. Because Gabe was one of the first people that was in the class. Gabe and Andrea.
I remember Andrea, too.
Yeah.
All these people I haven't, I haven't seen Andrea in, 5 years.
Oh,
Probably
I
not
just
since...
had coffee with her maybe, 2 months ago. She's doing well. But, yeah, it was definitely... the two of them were, probably the three of us were the first surviving ones that were there from, fairly early on. And then, Shelley started, I think 2 weeks after I did. So, people started trickling in little by little. But we sort of saw Secret Within the Sphere as, our...
I forgot about that movie, too.
Yeah,
Wow.
this was a steampunk...
Oh, cool.
Fantasy movie that we did. And we sort of saw it as our final exam because there was just so many people that were involved in Brad's class that were in that film. Mm-hmm. So, that's just kind of how we saw it. We're like, oh, okay, this is just our final. But yeah, that was, that movie, we finished filming that summer of 2019. So
yeah, that's been a long time in the making, too. And I occasionally see, posters and trailers for it, and I'm like, oh, this is finally coming out.
That one got affected by COVID as well. So that one basically, just briefly, they had someone they sold it to who was going to distribute it, and then they went under during COVID. And so then he had to start the whole process again of trying to find, and he did find a distributor, but then I guess they're telling him maybe by the end of this year it'll come out, so we'll see.
So grief,
yes,
we talk about grief a lot on this podcast, right, Shannon?
Well, we talk about sad things.
Yeah.
Well, it's called a depression podcast, right?
Depression
vacation. And Ryan
Depression
always gets on
vacation.
us because
your fiance
we
always...
end up talking about sad stuff. But, I was telling somebody about the podcast recently, and I said, really the idea of the podcast is just to, be candid, I think, is the biggest part of it. Talking about things that either bum us out or things that make us not so bummed out. So, I think that sharing interests is really important to that process of, getting through your mental illness and that kind of thing, and reaching out into the universe and saying hey, I'm here. Who else is here? And just having kind of that camaraderie. So
it's a good catharsis every week too.
Yeah.
So it's fun just to talk about things that are bumming us out, but also sort of be jokey about them at the same time.
Yeah.
And not be too depressing. Otherwise, Ryan is going to get on us and be like, "Hal and Shannon,
he doesn't even listen to the podcast, so I don't know why he complains."
Wait, how does he know we're being depressing then?
Because I tell him. Or when he's on, and if we get near the sad stuff, he's just like, we'll be in the car on the way home, and he'll be like, every single time, and I'm just. So
yeah, but Sugey was saying that transient and cold both deal with different levels of grief or different
So they both deal with loss, and obviously, I think we're being much more open about it in terms of cold. That it's the loss of a child. I don't want to mention exactly what the loss is for.
As long as it's not Antichrist, I'll like it then.
Yeah, no. It's definitely so in terms of with transient, it's it really focuses on David, who's Greg's character, and his something happens and he now basically is dealing with his version of how he would deal with grief.
Okay.
And his version of it is, I did the whole do nothing and basically just sleep all day and let myself I now am going to take matters into my own hands and create a device where I can recreate memories that become real. It's a kind of very Flatliners.
I've definitely gotten that much of a vibe from not just from the trailer, obviously, and seeing the screenshots, but the stuff that you did shoot at my house. I did get because I remember Chris was doing
POV.
And I was like, yeah, this is clearly like sort of a VR sort of thing or something like that.
Yeah, so you get a lot of like first, point of view perspectives from Greg's character as he's kind of engaging in things. A little bit of that with Eric as well, who's like a co-lead in the film. And basically you just see like that's actually like a big sort of moment between our characters is actually like the different ways that we're both addressing our grief.
Yeah.
And so like whereas my character has kind of more moved on with the grief, he's kind of still like, I can make these come back. Like I can bring back our life in this way. And it's just like, so it's an interesting way of trying to say like AI could maybe solve our problems with grief, I guess is kind of a way to like look at it. Don't want to do spoilers, but like it's an interesting take on how we could deal with our memories, could deal with the things that are causing us pain, and whether or not we can truly ever get away from them.
Yeah, you could make the case that like humans dealing with grief is probably the biggest thing we do as human beings, because like pretty much all of our bad habits I think come from dealing with various griefs on things, or some of our like I don't know, the worst angels of our nature in that case. Like yeah. And then with Cold it's a little bit different in the sense that my character there, it's very character focused, so there's not a ton of dialogue. When there is, some of it's actually in Spanish as well. Because you are bilingual as well.
I am bilingual, yeah. I'm Dominican. And so we've chosen to make the character someone who is... It's not really like a key part to the story. So it's not like that, like we're doing anything that's like hugely like, evocative of that. It's just that's just who she is,
It's a cool component to throw in there for sure.
It's a cool, yeah. And the girl who's playing my daughter is, she's actually Puerto Rican. And we actually met her at a First Take film festival here in Pennsylvania.
Very cool.
Where she was showing a movie called El Canto de los Coquis, which was really great. And that was like her directorial debut. So it was really cool to meet her and then get to work with her. But yeah, in this one, basically I just wake up. It's a very allegorical story. So I wake up in this deep state of I had probably been sleeping, and I wake up in this strange place, and basically it's kind of like a purgatory state, which is again an allegory more to like my state of mind. So again, this is in our crowdfunding campaign, so it's not like a shock, it's not like a spoiler, but like my daughter has basically committed suicide.
Aww.
And so she was my world, and so I am now locked in my own mind, not knowing what my place is and not knowing whether I want to survive. And so it's basically like, how would I deal with that? Like what choices will I make? Will I decide to actually come out of that locked state, or will I stay in purgatory because of just how much my own grief is overwhelming me? So in terms of movie time, you see me across 1,000 days, so almost 3 years. So I did do some makeup tests, and Greg plans on deteriorating me quite rapidly.
I'll be interested in seeing this when it comes out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so like I did some Izzy Izzle, who is actually also going to be the head makeup artist for Stalked that we mentioned earlier, is going to be kind of in charge of messing me up a little bit. But there's elements of both something called magical realism and also body horror in the film.
I'm not a huge fan of body horror in general. Like, I've never seen Human Centipede and don't want to.
There's not like a ton of, but there is like, and again, it's more so. It is because at first, like, Greg is a huge fan of that kind of stuff, and actually so is Chris. But like he at first had put some things in there, and this is again talking about the collaborative thing. Both myself and then Jamie Root, who's our DP, kind of have worked with him enough that we really called him out on certain things, and we're just like, all right, why? Like, why is this part needed? Why is, just to like make sure like it's okay for, certain parts of it to be in there, but like, is there a reason for the thing?
Yeah.
And then like toning it down so that it is just as much as is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I can see how body horror could be evocative of the story that you're trying to tell. I think that something that separates something like the Human Centipede from something like, just trying to think off the top of my head and I can't, but
I actually have a pretty good, because I think I know what you're saying, and because I was thinking about like body horror could really just be a lot of different things, and the thing that came to mind was like at the end of the first season of Fargo, when Billy Bob Thornton's character like steps in a bear trap that has been set up for him, and he's in his cabin like fixing not just like his torn up leg but completely broken bone. That is a very hard thing to watch, but that's like motivated body horror because that's like an actual injury he got while stalking this person. And it's almost more unsettling that way because like kind of like what you were saying, Shannon, Human Centipede is kind of like gratuitous and a weird sort of fantasy body horror. Same with Tusk, although I could handle Tusk. So
yeah, this is definitely so like we definitely like did a check on that.
Yeah.
Which that was the sentiment that I was trying to say earlier about the ADD brain, I swear, with Chris in terms of the collaborative stuff that we were talking about, and what I like to be able to do with directors is I'm all for, in that pre-production time, like let's gut it and like let's figure everything out. And then I'm very hands-off once production actually starts.
I never would have guessed that about you. So
just that like I need the crew needs to know that there is one head. Do you know what I mean? Like, and not like that people are arguing like at the top about like who to talk to about, like I would deal with like the business aspects of things, but like in terms of it's, in terms of Transient, like it's Chris's movie. Like it is our movie. Like, and he'll always say like, oh, it's our, and I was like, yes, but you wrote, you directed it, you edited it, you even did the composing for it.
It's
like
his
this
baby.
is your baby.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of its stepmom.
And that's very good of you to like to do that on set, because I've been on so many movie sets where that is not the case, and you get some sort of like actually the director who sunk my reality series. He did want to work his crew on the feature we've never finished too. And I actually got like we did hire some of my DP's friends from like New York who were professional like gaffers and things like that, and they all like when we would have like a powwow at the end of every single shooting day, a lot of them would be like, hey, just to let you know, this person is kind of just getting in my way because he's questioning every single thing I'm doing, and like that was his particular way of trying to contribute more to the production.
Yeah.
But in reality, like if you have a gaffer or a DP, you have them there for a reason.
Yeah.
So like if they're doing something egregious like missing an eye line or breaking 180 or something, you might be able to say something to them. But I would like this guy was like doing everything, like menial like lighting calls and things like that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And so I think like at a certain point, like in order to have that good, like it's like so we're going to do tech scout ahead of time, doing all this. It's just like because I also like since I'm so character involved in the actual film itself, I don't want to think about those things anyway once I'm on set. You know what I mean? Like I want to be focused on the character anyway. But with Transient, I was like third on the call sheet, so I wasn't like in every scene or anything like that. It was a lot of them were the two guys, and so I could have spent more time kind of like overlooking certain things. But I my approach to it was just like, nope, we've talked about it. You have to let it go. Mm-hmm. He knows what my thoughts on things are. We're gonna and like we would check tape and stuff, or not tape, but you know what I mean. Like we would check
the takes
and stuff afterwards. Like at the end of the day, he would send certain things. We would have discussions afterwards. But like in that time on set, he didn't need me. He just needed me to be a complementary piece to the equation. And especially in indie when you have so many fires to burn out and you're wearing different hats. Like I was for Transient, I was a producer, I was an actress, I did do a lot of the production design. I did costume design.
Very cool.
I did catering. Sometimes I did transpo. Like there was just so much that you end up doing in indie, and it's just like there's another place I could be right now.
Yeah.
Like I could be making sure the actors know what they're, doing the call sheet, that was the other thing, second AD. So like there's so many things. So many things, and so that's the thing, is that you need to be more of like a helper than like a hindrance to things.
What you were saying too about making it collaborative, I really like. That's kind of where I've landed with movies. Like I think auteur theory is garbage in general. Like I don't think that one person has you can have the vision, but like the execution, it's better if everybody has some sort of thing. And that's why like the stakes with my movies are obviously a lot lower, but my general thing is kind of like, if anybody has an idea, just shout it out. The worst I can say is no. Which I will if I don't like it. So
yeah, exactly. And I think though that's definitely, again, it's more so there's a time, so we as soon as we know who like is in our crew, we try to get them incorporated into that process way ahead of time, so that way you're spotting, like so even when we met with Izzy, like we already met with her and she already did makeup tests on me, and so we took the whole script to her and went scene by scene, and he was like, okay, like at this point she should already have like rosacea-y stuff, by this point it should be worse. At this point she should probably have like
you plan out a lot farther ahead than I'd ever do.
But that's the kind of but that's the thing with like learning it as you kind of go along and like figuring out like, okay, like if we want to have like peace while we're filming and like everybody knows and like feels like they're equipped to be able to make decisions on their own, because like that's ideally
a good way to put it.
That's ideally, it's like I don't want my makeup artist to not know what they're doing and to be running up to me every 2 seconds to ask me like what it is that she should be doing. I want to be able to equip you to be able to say, I know what to do and let's go for it. And so like to have each of your department heads sort of feel like I have that control, and then that's their way of contributing, is like I don't have to deal with that, like you know what you're doing.
It kind of reminds me of like, I remember there was a line I heard in the Lucy and Desi documentary, which was fantastic. If anybody out there hasn't seen that was one of my favorite just movies that I saw 2 years ago. But like they were going over Lucy's like old tapes, and she was talking a lot about like how Desi ran business, which was very well. And one thing she said there was like, he hired good people for the job and then let them do that job. Yep. And I really I was like, that is a very profound, good way to do things. And it's something that not everybody, especially in the creative fields, feels confident enough to just let out of their control to let them do that job. So
yeah. Absolutely.
But anyway, thanks for coming by. And we have a couple of minutes left. So Shannon, what's going on with you? You got anything fun coming up?
So far, I have the October 21st show with Sarah Cartwright.
Yay.
We'll be doing a Monster Mash comedy show where we'll be telling jokes as our characters, and I'm set up to tell some Legend of Zelda jokes as Link. So that'll be pretty fun. That's really the only thing I have coming up creatively, and then just planning the wedding and all that stuff. So
planning a wedding,
November 11th, which I didn't realize was Veterans Day when I said it, but I wanted it to be something easy to remember, and so that's fine. But yeah, so exciting stuff. A little more than 2 months now. So
How are you feeling?
Excited, anxious. All the things. But mostly excited, just ready to marry him and just be married people.
Are you doing a big wedding, or are you doing
It's going to be a total of around like 65 people, so not like huge.
I still need to respond to.
Yeah, what the hell, Hal?
I know. What the hell?
What the hell?
I have it on my kitchen table. It's just like with every...
It's fun when I go over to my friends' houses and like my face is on their fridge. That makes me happy.
Yeah, Ryan's actually been like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but like we're in a bachelor party group chat or something, which sounds like it's going to be sweet, like fun, good time. I like that bachelor parties have evolved into
fun
rather than forced sexualization, because I've never been a fan of strip clubs. I've been dragged to them to a couple of times because I had friends who were like super into strip clubs. It's like, my birthday, we're going to Savannah's. Oh, you have to come. And I'm like, what do I do here? I'm like, this is...
Yeah, even bachelorette parties, honestly. Like, I'm so glad I'm actually past the age where anybody asks me to be a part of their wedding.
I thought I was past that age.
It's just, I mean, maybe not. Maybe somebody will surprise me. But for the most part, like, I'm just kind of like, I just want to come and enjoy it and just give you your gift. I was like, it's a lot. It's gotten really involved lately.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're supposed to do things are like really crazy. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, The last one I
Glad
did-
that's over.
I'm just like glad that's over. So yeah, I've been to a couple of things. When like the interesting thing is like when we were having our situation, like I mean we already had a son who was 3 years old. So it was kind of like our friends were like, "Oh, we're gonna come," like, and we're like, "We don't want any of that. Like, we do not want a bachelorette party. Like, we're gonna have the rehearsal dinner. We can hang out at the rehearsal dinner like adults.
We're already partners anyway, so
It's already And so it was just, but they were threatening to come to our house and like extract us and stuff. So we just like disappeared for the evening and like went somewhere ourselves.
that's
'cause we were just-
kidnapping, Sugey.
It is. And I was like, no, you are not forcing us to like basically like participate in something for your own debauchery. Like
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, we already told you we don't want to do that. So
yeah,
like,
we've
why-
already cut out a lot of the like stuff that we were like, that doesn't make any sense, or it's just like too much work and nobody does it anymore. So yeah, I would say that this wedding is pretty low key. Like I'm leaning into some of the things that are like fun and like that I want to do, but overall it's going to be pretty,
nice.
you know.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
I think the first bachelor party,
I
like
love this journey for me.
Thank you.
I love this journey for you too. Like I remember like 10 or 11 years ago, I had friends who invited me to a bachelor party at the Renaissance Fair, which was fun. And then like I
That's
wasn't.
where we got married.
You got married at the Ren Fair.
My dad got married
Not
at the Ren Fair
during
the second
fair.
time.
Like the
but,
Pennsylvania
at the-
one?
Yeah, at the Pennsylvania one. Not during the fair, but
It's
it
like
was
they
like
have, like, a separate-
Do you mind?
thing.
Do you mind if I ask what year it was? Because my girlfriend used to be the pickle girl at the Renaissance Fair.
It's a long time ago.
Never mind then. So she was probably not the pickle girl there.
No, it was a long time ago. But no, it's so when you do it off season, none of that stuff is there.
Oh.
So you actually work with a caterer and everything. So we just like did it like near where the waterfalls would be, and then
Aw.
we used the mansion for the reception.
Yeah, the
and that
mansion
kind of
would be
stuff.
pretty cool. Like I've been to the Poe Festival at the mansion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty awesome. So
Yeah. Yeah, and they have like they did, I don't know if they still have it. They had like a mini chapel in the mansion. So like, and that was like always the thing is like, we'll do it outside, but should it rain, we have
Yeah.
this as backup and like you'll have to, and we're like, we don't want to do it inside. And then like it ended up being a beautiful day. So it was fine.
Good.
But yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hal, what do you have coming up?
I guess I have 2 improv shows coming up and
Nice.
they'll be monthly features at this point because I'm on 3 teams for this particular season. We had our first Fast Coast Live show Friday night, which was a lot of fun because we hadn't, outside of like one festival we hadn't really done that team in 3 years, and I thought it was gonna be dead. But then we reunited for a festival in April, and I was kind of like, does anybody want to get back together on a permanent basis? And the answer was like, "Mrrr." And then around like July of this year, as the seasons were being open for submission again, some people were like, we had fun. Let's do that again. So there's that. I'm in Bonfire Society next Friday at 9, which is a harmonic convergence group where we have 2 different sets of people in different scenes that eventually get closer and closer and closer to each other. And then my personal favorite, the Offbeats, which is our improvised musical group, is the last Friday of every month. So I'll probably talk more about those as they come up. But no stand-up shows because I'm not funny enough or within, shall we say, I'm not active enough as a stand-up.
That's better. There you go.
Yeah. I really I still am struggling with energy issues for going out for stand up. Like I really wanted to go last Thursday, and then like work ended up being really hard, and like because I work 12 to 8, I have to go there directly afterwards. And I was like, do I want to go out to stand up when I'm really tired, or do I want to go home and snuggle my girlfriend's dog who was staying with me? The dog won.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Of course it did.
But yeah, I'm excited for that. And of course, like Horror Vid Jam is coming up in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have Sam Melville on at some point to talk to us
Nice.
about that. And yeah, and Sugey, thank you so much for coming by and
Absolutely.
being a friend. You have so many interesting stories and experiences, so thank you for sharing them with us.
So we have Transient and Cold coming out.
Yeah, and with Colds, if you still want to help support it in any way, followers actually great on Seed and Spark, so it's a free way for you to help.
Yeah, I think you and I had talked about this. I'm too broke, unfortunately, to contribute to any more
That's
Indiegogos
okay.
or
I
anything.
mean, we are. I think it's a little less than $1,500 away from like our goal. So like
Nice.
literally like $5.
Yeah.
It all works.
Anything.
You know what?
helps,
I could swing $10. I
There
think
you
if that
go.
would help
I was
out.
gonna say, yeah. So like any little amount, like honestly, is helping us get closer and closer to our goal. Actually, surprisingly, which is so strange for any of these crowdfunding platforms, and even from my previous experiences, like our biggest contribution has been $500, and like we have like incentives that are way higher than that. And for transient, like we had people that gave way higher amounts. So like literally we've been inching along by people just giving small amounts.
My
So,
baseline
like,
is usually like $100 to give to somebody's project there, which is why I was kind of like, yeah, I can't afford $100 right now. But if you're saying smaller contributions,
Yep, totally.
I could throw $10 for something.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, that ends on Friday at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. But yeah, we have like a full week of things that we're doing. So this is the first thing this week. And then I have some more interviews and stuff this week. We are going to be releasing our poster probably this week.
Woohoo.
So we did work with this lady named Sophia.
All this fun
out of
stuff coming up.
Philadelphia. And we have a teaser trailer coming out this week.
Fantastic.
That Chris Rupert helped us shoot and is helping us edit. So.
Yeah.
So if you're listening right now, the link to get to the crowdsourcing, we'll make sure we have that in the description for this episode. And,
Yeah.
right, Hal?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'll remember it.
Hal?
We say things and then we forget to do or say things.
I'll remind you. Or I might.
Shannon,
Or
will, after I
Suji
post the
will remind us.
description, she'll be like, you didn't post the link for Cole. I don't know why you're an old Jewish mother now in this case, too.
Listen, people sometimes wonder if I'm Jewish, but that's a conversation for another day.
I think maybe I should just have a conversation with my therapist about why every time I talk about a woman in my life talking to me, it sounds like this.
I feel like in the grand scheme of problems you might have, that's probably like low on the totem pole. So don't worry about that.
Every problem is a problem, Shannon. We have to work on all of them. They're all
I
part.
become one when I yell at somebody for some reason. So
Now
it's
that
fair.
I think, like in terms of comparison, like she should see her therapist sooner.
as to why I do that. Yeah.
I've thankfully never gotten into a situation with you where you've ever had to yell at me, and I don't actually foresee that ever happening anyway. But I really hope it doesn't.
No, it takes a lot. Like kind of like what you were saying. Like it actually takes quite a bit to get me to that level.
We've talked a lot about this for me on this podcast, and actually being on anxiety medication the last year has helped a lot. But with me, I don't know if this is the way it is with you, but for me, because it takes so much to get me to a point where I really am angry at somebody or don't want to be around somebody, I totally overreact at that point. Like it gets to the point where if you flooded the gates too much to the point they break, all of the flood water pours out, and I hate you, and I'm never going to talk to you again.
I mean, I think I've adjusted as I've gotten older in terms of let's be honest and let's just have better communication. So anyone that I am working closely with, and it's just like let's just if I'm getting on your nerves, if you're getting them, can we just talk? And get it over with so that it doesn't get to that point. But a few people have slipped by the cracks and then, but yeah, it's just.
My therapist tells me not everybody is meant to be a person to everybody.
Yep.
Right.
So even if you're a very amenable person, we're all very complicated
different.
people.
We're all complicated people. We all have our own toxicity that we bring to the table, our own past.
And when you find people who do not get that poisoned by your toxicity, we call them friends.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, this has been a fun hour and a half with Sugey. Thanks again for being on the podcast. For Depression Vacation, I've been Hal.
I've been Shannon.
And I'm Suji.
Yeah, and have a great week, and we'll see you next week.